Um, and one of the things that they're trying to do is they're really looking for the soul. They don't understand the soul. They don't understand our extremes of emotions as well, because they're very, very different from us. There's experiments haven't been all that successful. There are a lot of emotional problems with that, with what they're doing, because what really makes a human being is our essence, is the spirit that animates the physical form. Well, there's also another factor, and that is that they actually feed off the energy. They're vampires. The Greys, right? They're vampires.
Is this where we get our vampire legends? A lot of our vampire legends?
I don't know about that. I don't know if that has to do with it. I don't really know. I wouldn't be surprised, to be perfectly honest with you. But they feed off the energy. They can even bottle the energy and use it for later times. They're also stealing the vital bodies of human beings and storing it. So, I mean, they're just doing some really horrific things here that other races just simply wouldn't conceive of doing.
Now, are you familiar with Salvador Freixedo?
No, never heard of him.
Okay, he's a gentleman who proposes, he's a former Jesuit priest who proposes the idea that Colosseum-type sporting events are used to vampire energy off the crowds.
I wouldn't at all be surprised. Right. It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
He said, like, the sacrifice of human beings in some ancient civilizations here on Earth was a form of belief system that was set up for these beings to vampire energy off of.
I wouldn't be surprised at that either.
Okay. Now,
war, our wars here, it's the exact same thing. And to all of your viewers, I'm going to give you some homework. It is an absolute must that you go out and get the book, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. It is an excellent introductory book that will bring you right up to speed with what's going on. It is over 80% accurate with the information in there, and I strongly suggest that people read it. It's excellent.
And the 20% that isn't accurate revolves around what type of ideas?
Around the soul and the being that we know as Jesus, which I'm not going to go into.
Okay. Now, how are we doing on time here? Do you still have some more time?
Well, we've come here an hour so far. We'll continue.
Okay, you let me know when you
okay.
need to break. How are the renegade Zeta Reticulans able to manipulate Earth's most powerful governments into a position of checkmate?
Oh, it's easy. That part was really easy. Number one, their technology is 2,500 years more ahead of us. Number two, because of our greed factor, certain groups of power elite are in touch with them on a physical level. Well, many of them are implanted. Many of them are so implanted that they have now become part of the Grey group mind. And the Andromedans no longer consider some of these human beings, Terrans as they call us, human at all anymore. They're nothing but clones for what the Greys want. And they pass down orders, they tell others what to do, and of course the chain of command that we've established on our planet is exactly what's happening. Also, playing on the greed factor, those who are still human, they look at the fact that, well, they're here, they're the rulers, we can still maintain our place of privilege in the world, so we'll form the new priesthood. We'll be the go-between between the workers and the gods, just like we saw in Babylon, in Assyria, Egypt. It's all over again. It's history repeating itself all over again.
Because it's the control factor, the hierarchy is the established mode for these negative civilizations to keep their power structure intact.
That's right.
Okay.
And it's another thing, and there's also one more factor. It is about human beings out for power, selling out their own race.
The World Club.
Just selling out the rest of us, the human race, for their moment in glory, for their privilege to be with the gods, so to speak, who are aliens. That's what it is. To have technology that can take them to the moon, to have the technology that can take them to Mars, that will give them the technology to do time travel. They totally sold out a race, our history, everything, for their brief moment in the sun.
Now,
pisses me off.
I'm sure when they look back on their lives afterward, I would assume that they would regret their choice.
I don't know. I don't know.
How will the renegade Zeta Reticulans have to be removed?
It's, well, if we can create, if humanity makes a real commitment to create an environment of unconditional love and simply refuses to hate, to go to war, to kill each other and destroy our planet, they'll have to leave because they can't deal with the vibration. If we can't, it's going to take outside intervention to get them out of here. Period.
Are the renegade Zeta Reticulans going to try to deceive humanity with an elaborate religious event they are staging?
The perceived second coming, yes. I have been told to really beware of that they are very capable of playing out the second coming, creating a clone who will look like the image on the Shroud of Turin, which, by the way, was one of their deals. And this soul will have holographic imprints and information regarding all the world's religions. He won't have a soul. And yes, I mean, we've been led down this path of the book of Revelations that this is God's word. This is the way it has to happen. And you know what? God didn't write the Bible. Man wrote the Bible. Period. ETs didn't write the Bible, but some ETs did tell those souls, those men, what to write. And we have been led down this path where we totally will succumb our free will to become subservient. And I'm not here to offend anybody, but really think about it. Really think about, what we've done and what our history has been. We've been to this place so many times before, and we still haven't gotten it right. And we're still not going to get it right unless we do it as a race and just cut out all the crap. Period.
Now, that leads me, I'm going to jump a question. Do they have control of the world media?
Greed does. Greed does.
But a lot of the
I don't know if it's them
I'm
themselves.
seeing,
Well, the programming is being introduced, and it is mankind that is introducing it to the masses.
So it's the people that are selling out.
That's it. It's the new priesthood.
Okay.
That's where the responsibility lies.
What would be the outcome if human beings believed that renegade Zeta Reticulans were the hope of mankind?
We would know a tyranny and an enslavement that is far beyond anything we could even imagine. To put it just quite bluntly, we'll never be free again. We'll never be free again. We will be stuck until we're rescued by an outside force. We ourselves will not be able to break free. That's the bottom line. And right now, we have an opportunity. There is a window of time for us to break free, to do it ourselves, to really make this incredible leap ourselves, so that we can have the benefit of taking responsibility for it.
Now, in that passion that you talk with right there, that passion that we have, if we want to break free, should be manifested into the spirit of love?
Yeah, love. That's the bottom line. It's brotherhood. It's knowing that, hey, we're a race. It doesn't matter the color of our skin. We are a race. And we're being messed with in a big way. We're being manipulated in an incredibly audacious way. They're just mocking how stupid we are when we're really not stupid. But nobody will tell the truth. Nobody will come out and say, hey, none of this is right. We were never meant to live this way. And they had no right to come down here and mess with us the way they've done that. And the real strength in us, in our own permanent evolvement as a race, will come from us standing up, taking a stand and saying, you know what? No way. We're not going to do this. We're not going to destroy ourselves for your enjoyment so you can feed off of us. You had no right to manipulate our governments, to create wars. None of this was right. And that's it. We need to stand up as a race, exercise our free will, and say, you know what? We don't want to live this way anymore. We want to create a real future where our kids will have an opportunity to be whatever they want, to live in an environment that's clean, that's free, where they can have water to drink, where they can go out and eat fruit, where they can play in the dirt without getting radioactively toxic. All of this stuff that we're doing to ourselves.
So the people with weapons, the police, the military people, these people need to be persuaded and persuade themselves and then believe themselves that they can lay down their weapons, that they don't need to use them against other human beings, that they can love other human beings, interact with them without a violent or power control type of situation going on.
I'm not saying that there aren't serious problems. I'm not saying that at all. There are some who do. But the bottom line is, when you look at the whole picture and you go up the ladder, okay, we are not the enemy. The enemy isn't human at all. But it's pushing all our buttons so that we're so busy looking at each other and so neurotic about each other that we're not looking at the real reality here, the real cause, which is another race or races that are here who are totally playing games with us, feeding off our energy, and hoping that we destroy ourselves so that they can keep the planet.
And
themselves.
really, let's say who it is again. It's the Orion group.
It's the Orion group. It's a group that is on its way here now from Alpha Draconis. They're the real culprits behind this whole deal.
Alpha Draconis or Orion, or both those two?
Alpha Draconis. They're the real culprits behind this whole thing.
Above the Orion group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
then there's Orion. Then there's Orion. The Orion group. Then you've got the Greys.
And where did the Giza intelligence fit in here?
They were just a group that were totally independent, that came in and did their own thing. They were perceived as gods, and they played the role out. And they got stuck in it. You know, they got stuck in the ego part of it. We're gods, we can do this, we have all this technology, and they just played it out for all that it was worth.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, at this point, they're not really much of a factor anymore. You know, Giza intelligence, they're not much of a factor at all anymore.
What should a human being do if they encounter a renegade Zeta Reticulan? What would your advice be?
Stand in their truth. If you can't run, stand in your truth and just look at them. If they try to project their thoughts into your head, you just stand firm with who you are and you say, no, you are not coming into my head, you are not taking me over, and you are not going to violate my free will. I don't give a damn who you are. Leave me alone. Period. Because if it's a benevolent, they will not try to do it. They will not try to take you over. They will not try to put crap into your head so they can feed off of your fear. Period.
All right. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to skip the Giza intelligence for the moment then, and we'll go to the Alpha Draconis.
Can we take a short time out?
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. You know, Rick, there's something else I want to stress here, and that is, and this is something that the Andromedans have really stressed. There is no race any better than us. Just because they're different, just because they're more evolved, doesn't mean that they're better. We are equal. We're just not maybe as aware as they are. But that doesn't mean that any race is any better or any less. In fact, we're all equal.
So we should not worship anybody?
Hell, no. Absolutely not. That's how we got into this mess in the first place. Right. If you want to worship somebody, worship the God within you. That's it. Worship no one else. And if you're going to have a tyrant in your life, let it be that part of you that's critical of you. Let that be your only tyrant. Don't give anybody else any power outside of your physical form to be a tyrant, to control you, or manipulate you in any way. Be yourself. Because if you are yourself, you're a part of God, and that part of you knows what to do. It knows the right way to live. And, you know, and this is really interesting. Because of our genetic makeup, of the 22 different races, and all of the DNA and the racial memories that we have and the genetics that we have, because of the fact that we are spirit, do you know, and this is an incredible thing, do you know that the Andromedans actually consider us royalty? They consider us royalty. We obviously aren't acting like royalty, but we're the only ones in our galaxy that can make the claim to having the genetics that we have and the possibilities and the capabilities of doing what we can do as a race. We're the only ones. They actually consider every single one of us royalty. Now, think about that.
I guess all beings that would try and be spiritual and raise their spirituality, in essence, would be royalty.
Yes, I suppose that's true.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ringleaders then of this whole orchestration that's going here on Earth. According to your Andromedan sources, there are 22 races originally colonized the Earth, the first race being the reptilians from Alpha Draconis. What was the nature of their colony here?
Well, they're Hyperborean. Basically, they're explorers. And they're also genetic engineers. They would just colonize. They would take samples. They would hang a flag and say, this belongs to us, just like we did with the moon. But we weren't the first ones there. Exactly what we've done. They were explorers. And they would just go to a place, they would see what was there, they would explore it, if there were minerals that they needed, if there were other life forms, organisms, whatever it was that they needed, they took, and then when it was done, they had enough, they moved on, and just kept exploring and expanding their realm of exploration or territory.
You said they were dumped here.
Originally they were. They
Right.
were dumped in Alpha Draconis. Nobody knows exactly where they came from, and my understanding is that even in their ancient history, they don't know exactly where they came from. But they were left in Alpha Draconis because that particular system offered them the highest probability of survival. And from there, they were able to create craft, space travel. I mean, they're magnificent in what they did, and they're to be commended for what they did. But the fact that they need to control and dominate and manipulate to the degree, sorry, I have a problem with that. And so does half of the galaxy. That's just the way they are. They're the biggest bully. Nobody can beat them up or wipe them out, so therefore they have no motivation to change. So that's the space they hold. And, the Andromedans actually consider them the ultimate warriors, which says a lot, for whatever reasons.
A lot of bullies end up destroying themselves.
Well, that's something that may possibly need to happen, we hope soon, or I hope soon. Because we need to be free. We need to have our shackles that we've been put around us let go of, so that we can really evolve. And we have awesome potential. We really do. We have been, as a race, we have been through so much here. We have so much experiences, and because of our emotions, which is really our strength, which really sets us apart from all the other races out there, even the other human races. We have tremendous capabilities to create things. And, but we need to get clear of what's real and what isn't. We also need to get really clear about being able to create our own future, to create our own reality, and not have somebody say, well, that doesn't work for me, so you're going to have to do this. Play God and ruler over us.
Sense of responsibility is
right.
so important in all of this.
It's with any sense of power, with any knowledge, comes responsibility. That's exactly right. And the divine plan is one of freedom, free expression. Free expression, free expression, free expression. It is not one where they want to implant us and they say, you are going to be a worker, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. Sorry, that's not what it's all about. And if anybody tries to force that stuff down your throat, fight it.
Okay, so the Andromedans tell you that the Alpha Draconans are here now. Where?
There are 1,833 of them that have been living underground between 100 and 200 miles beneath the surface. They've been here, some of them have been here a long, long time. They have lifespans that are thousands of years. They're carnivorous. They are not friendly to mankind, at least the ones that are here.
Are you saying carnivorous, they eat humans?
Yes. And they won't eat a dead human. It has to be alive at the time of the killing. Their preference is children. And we've been told, you shouldn't talk about that. There are other people say, well, you better not talk about the reptilians. Well, bull. Why not? According to the Andromedans, they're responsible for 31,712 children disappearing in the last 25 years from the United States. These children were food. And I'm supposed to just shut up and not say anything about it because people don't want to hear it? That's tough. That's tough. You know, Westchester County, in the last 5 years, 3,000 children in Westchester County, New York, have vanished without a trace. Where are they going? Why are we allowing this to happen? And why should people want to stay in denial about it?
Now, how are they able to do this? How are they able to? How are they able to? How are they able to do it? How are they able to come up out of this from underground and do it, or do they have?
There are tunneling systems everywhere. They're being helped by the Greys, and also there are groups within the higher echelon that are acquire this.
So human beings are abducting the kids and giving them to the Greys, who in turn give them to the Alpha Draconians?
That's right. That's part of the deal. They won't come up as long as we feed them down there. You understand? It's about human beings selling themselves out. The echelon attitude here, the needs of the few outweigh the needs of humanity. And sorry, that just isn't right. You know, but it's going to have to be humanity that's going to rise up and take the stand. You're just going to have to turn off your televisions. They're going to have to get in their car. They're going to have to fire everybody in Washington, D.C. that knows and does nothing. And they're going to have to do something. You know, this apathy's got to end. Otherwise, the way we live is going to end. Period. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, and I'm not coming from a fear space. I'm really quite angry about the apathy and the fact that, you know, when people give lectures and try to tell this, people want to stand up and fight with them. Look at what's happening around us. The indications are everywhere. Everywhere. The truth is now an obscure thing. You know, the lie is the norm. There's something wrong here. What's wrong with this picture? Sorry, I'm getting crazy.
No, you're not. You're expressing frustration, I think. Why, aside from the carnivorous aspect to the Alpha Draconians, why else are they dangerous to humanity?
Because they don't like us.
And what are they willing to do with humanity?
Eat us. There's no need for us. I mean, look at where we are. Look at us right now as a civilization, as a society. Okay? They don't need anything. They have all this technology that they want. We can't really offer them except maybe work, do some work for them. But they don't need all of us to work for them. They don't respect human life in any way whatsoever. And this goes back to Lyra, to where the original war started. When they got to Lyra originally, they saw this human race that was plentiful in food, that could grow food, that could do all of these agricultural things. And mankind on a whole is really agricultural. We really, as a race, if we were left alone, would be nurturing the earth. We would be living in tribal communities like the Native American Indians did. You know, that's really our essence, our nature, I'm sorry. That's really our nature, our essence. And, you know, the cities and the culture that we're living in now has totally cut us off from the land, from what our real essence is, which is nature. And, you know, we're starting to feed off each other now. It's like so bizarre. You know, it's like when I see the Andromedans or when I've been exposed to the Pleiadians, when I see how they live and they teach and they live with each other and they respect each other, and I come here. It's like, you know, it reminds me of that sentence that Abraham Lincoln, that quote that Abraham Lincoln once said. You know, if you are above the earth looking down, you could be an atheist. But when I'm on the earth looking up and seeing the heavens, I know there's a God. It's like the duality. And I think enough of us, more of us, really need to start taking the perspective that what we're doing here isn't right. You know, we need to get in touch with what's out there, with just the whole idea that, God, how did we get here? What makes me be here? You know, as opposed to going home after work, turning on TV, watching 3 hours of television, going to bed, getting up the next morning, going to work, and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, like robots. Throw the televisions away. Just throw them away.
Okay, what are the physical characteristics of the Alpha Draconians? What do they look like?
I don't have that. Maybe it's in the car. They're ugly. I mean, they think we're ugly too. And I guess it's all a matter of perspective and belief system. In my belief system, and I'm only taking responsibility for me, they're ugly. They're anywhere from 7 to 22 feet tall. They can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They're reptilian. The ones that have stubby tails, if you see one that has no tail, he's of the warrior class or the worker class. The longer the tail, the higher their rank. When you see one with long tails, with winged appendages, he's considered royalty. Whenever you see one, you ought to just run like hell. You shouldn't approach it. You shouldn't provoke it. Just get the hell out of its way. Just get out of its way. Just run. There is a way to kill them. If you can't cut off their head, they have two hearts. There's one here, underneath this armpit, and one here. Or, if you can't get to that area and you need to slow it down, you need to hit it right above its groin area. It has a very large liver. You need to wound it there to slow it down. It is not something where man-to-man combat you're going to be able to deal with, because they apparently have the strength of 12, 15 men. They're incredibly quick. They're incredibly psychic. They know what you're going to do before you do it. If they get here en masse, we got real problems. Real problems.
What do the Andromedans advise human beings to do if they encounter an Alpha Draconin?
To leave. You leave its space. Get away. To get away.
What if they can't?
Then they can't.
And if they can't?
They'll usually be killed.
And what do they have the Andromedans spoken in any detail about what a human being should do if they are in that position? For karmic purposes?
Look, that's not karmic at all. A lot of these, all this metaphysical stuff, where you chose to be here, a lot of, in some situations that's true. When you're creating your reality and in your space. But when you're being invaded, that's not karma. That's a violation of free will.
If your free will is being violated, Alex, what should you do?
You should ask for help.
Okay.
Ask for help. Put a call up to God. Put a call up to heaven. Put a call to the Andromedas, the Pleiadians, whomever. Just put a call up and deal with it. I don't know. That's just the nature of the beast. They don't like us. We're considered a food source for them. For them. We're a food source for the Greys, but in an entirely different way.
Have they taught us to be carnivorous through the belief systems? Have they taught us to eat meat and eat flesh?
Well, it lowers the body's vibration. It lowers the body's vibration.
So,
if our body vibrated at a higher length, we would spiritually be evolving regardless of what our religions were teaching us. And they can't have that. They can't have us being free. They can't us not being in control, because then we're responsible for ourselves. So
as we move away from eating meat and more towards vegetarianism, we begin to raise our vibrational level and break this cycle.
It helps. Not everybody has to stop eating meat. It's not an absolute requirement. It certainly helps. But some people's belief systems will be that they just need a piece of meat. And for whatever their reasons are, that's fine. If you want to eat meat, that's fine. But you know what? Feed your mind. Feed your mind with spirit, with questions about existence, about what it is we're doing here, why we're here, what the hell is really going on. Why is it that I have all these material things and I'm still miserable in my life?
Well, I know that a lot of people with questions, where are some of the truthful answers? You mentioned one book, The Gods of Eden, that you felt really strongly about. What other sources are there that you feel that we have access to, aside from our inner selves, which is actually the best place to probably begin looking, but are there other starting points that people can use that you know of?
I mentioned Gods of Eden. George Andrews' books, E.T.s Among Us. There's a lot of information in there that not only deals with the E.T.s, but also the world political government. which right now is very dangerous for humanity, because it's part of the Grey Plan. It's part of their regressive alien plan to keep us in jail. Okay, do not pass go, but keep us in jail. Oh God, something I draw a blank. Help.
Okay, just as you think about it, interject it into the conversation.
Okay.
You mentioned throw the television out. Are television programs conditioning our youth into accepting these hostile beings, do you think? Or is that just human beings doing anything for a buck?
I don't necessarily know. I don't know, but the violence is desensitizing. Violence is just a way of life now. We've been taught that. We've been programmed that violence is just a way of life. So when we see really violent acts, oh, that's too bad. But, honey, what's on Channel 7? Or what movie are we going to rent tonight? But that's what it's come to. And it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. There is no reason that any of this has to occur at all. It really doesn't. And a lot of it is the responsibility of the people. Because if the producers in Hollywood are going to make movies like this, and we're going to go and buy the tickets, well, they're going to be motivated for the buck to continue to make these kind of movies. Where if they spend $20 million and nobody buys a ticket, they won't be making those kind of movies. So it comes back to people taking personal responsibility for what they think, what they want to believe, and what it is that they want to create.
Do the Andromedans really feel that we'll be able to reach that window?
Right now it's undecided. And that's the scary part. They don't know.
What would help push it forward?
I don't know. I really don't know. Except for just, start listening to people that are talking. Start really paying attention to what's going on. My grandfather used to have a saying, believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see. I wouldn't believe a thing that comes out of Washington, D.C. In fact, it's my own personal belief that this next election that's coming up next year in November, that every American should march on Washington, D.C. and should fire every single person that's there. They have run this country into the ground. They have totally sold us out to the United Nations for a buck, for the debt. And, even the monetary system, it's just a belief system. We could change that tomorrow if we wanted to. I mean, we're so intelligent, we could create something different. But we're believing, we've got to have this money. Do you know that we're the only race in our galaxy where people starve, that people are homeless? It's such bull. It doesn't have to be like this. If you're alive and you're on a planet and other civilizations, even the draconian races, they take care of their own. They don't sell out each other like we do here. They don't throw somebody in the street because they don't have a paper, which is really what it is. The only value on it is what we believe it is. They just don't have that. They don't let children starve. They don't feed grain to cattle that feed 20% of the population and let the other 25% that need the grain starve. It's unconscionable. They would never even think to do that. But we do it here. For bucks. For money. For power.
That's part of that conditioning process that's been going on 5,700 years.
That's part of it. But the responsibility is that there are people that know what's going on and they play the game anyway. They don't have the courage to say, look folks, let's deal with the realities here. We don't have a guy that's strong enough in office as president to stand up and say, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we've really been sold out. That there are forces within our government, like what Kennedy tried to do, that just flat out want to destroy the United States because we're too good, because we have too much. Instead of raising the consciousness and the life, everyday life, what's the word I'm looking for? A standard of living of instead of raising the standard of living that we have globally, they would rather just destroy the United States destroy our standard of living so that we're comparable to everybody else. So now everywhere is a third world nation. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it for power, for greed. We're selling out our own, and it's just, something's got to be done.
Could you describe the human military bases on the dark side of the moon, Mars, and the Mars probes as related to by the Andromedans, and how the Alpha Draconians fit into this scenario?
The Mars probes, the Russian and the US one, they're gone. They were destroyed. They're history. There's no secret here about, well, it's taking pictures privately. You know, and it doesn't matter whether you believe that or not. It's history. Okay? March of '89, the Russians took pictures. Mars was invaded. We had a human colony there of 300,000, so I'm told. One was underground, one was above ground, Adam and Eve. They're conquered. They're being taken over. The human beings that are from Earth, that volunteered or were kidnapped to go there, are in deep trouble. Many of them have already been eaten. Some of them have already been killed. There is nothing we can do here as a race to help them.
So that was Mars was conquered by the Alpha Draconians.
That's right. They came in. There's 100,000 of them there. They have approximately 2,111 scout craft there. They're in an area underground that is 64 square miles, known on Mars as the area of Tempe Terra. That's where their base is.
Now,
It's an ancient base that they had. It's over 1 million years old, and the last time it was in full bloom was 317,000 years ago.
Now, if we begin to train all our telescopes on that, are we going to be able to see activity going on there?
I suppose that we would. I have a feeling that they already are seeing incredible amounts of activity, but they're not allowed to say it. They're just not allowed to say it. Nor, who's going to want to jeopardize going to jail, being ridiculed, being fired, giving up everything they have to come up and say, well, I'm an astronomer, and I was looking at Mars, and I saw alien craft, and I know there's a base there, and it's being conquered by reptilian aliens. Who's going to have the guts to come up and say it? Nobody in the power elite. Nobody wants to blow their mortgage.
But somebody's going to have to, right?
So, well, yes.
But
eventually.
it's going to be too late by the time they do it. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes. And so, and that's exactly what the Andromedans are thinking. You see, you know, there are people probably saying, well, God, why don't they just come down and save us? There's a lot to that. Number one, if we're rescued, we don't permanently evolve ourselves. Number two, we won't take responsibility. If something goes wrong, we can always blame it on them. Number three, it doesn't just change our reality, it changes their reality as well. Number four, the Andromedans and most of the other benevolent races, they don't want to have to come down here and babysit us. That's not their job. It's not their job at all.
Now, in the way you told me that...
And number four, and I'm sorry, and number five, let me just add this. Look at how we've treated our Earth. Look at how we've trashed it ourselves. You know, they're like, why should we come down here and help you when you don't want to even help yourself? Or even make the effort? You know, the cleaning up the planet, we're giving to government bureaucracies. Well, here's $3 billion here. There's $10 billion there. Here's the super fund to clean up toxic waste, $20 billion. And the place is getting worse. You know, that's not the problem. The problem is on an individual level, on an individual basis. Just don't create plutonium anymore. Just don't create styrofoam anymore. Just tell the industries, the corporations, because we're the ones who control it. We're the ones buying the products. We won't buy it unless you fix it. End of story. Period. We need to change it. It's our planet. We are the bulk of humanity. It isn't the corporations. It isn't the Fortune 500. It isn't the Committee for 300. And it isn't the Trilateral. We could fire all of them if we had to. Period. But it's coming together and it's doing something about it. And it's going to have to be grassroots, and people are going to have to start doing it soon.
Are these leaders going to, if we do raise up and do a grassroots uprising, wouldn't they order the military to quell that like they do at Kent State or any other political demonstration?
They probably will try. They probably will try. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But you know what? Let's take an example of the American Revolutionary War. 4% of the population of the colonies actually rose up and fought the British. Only 4%. The rest stayed home, stayed in the pubs, drinking ale, doing whatever, and waited to see who would end the war, to see who would win. And then when we won, everybody wanted to take credit for it. But it was really only 4%. Those heroes. And those 4% changed the face of the world. Well, America, 210, 12 years, whatever it is now, we're right back at the same place where we're being called to do exactly the same thing.
But the paradox here, Alex, would be then that if we begin to war against ourselves, that's going to exactly fuel the whole fire that's going on.
Maybe for a brief time it would. Until one side surrendered or saw the light. Do you know New World Order? Do you know that they're building concentration camps to put millions of people in? Do you know that the United Nations has got 300,000 troops in the United States right now that they're going to use to confiscate weapons? And they're selling our active military troops, sending our active military troops out of the United States so they won't be here when this happens? Are you aware that that's going on? Do you know that just off the coast, just south of the border in Veracruz, there are 300 tons of Soviet military equipment ready to invade? I mean, this is that there are states actually wanting to succeed from the Union. Yes, there are 9 different regions. The United States has already been designated to be split up. They're getting ready to totally dismantle the United States of America. And the only real part of the United States of America, and I get so angry with this, is Washington, D.C., 68 square miles. That's really all that is the United States. We are in the Republic of Arizona. People in California are in the Republic of California. It is those separate republics that make up a United States. Washington, D.C. has totally manipulated everything. We're no longer the United States, what the forefathers founded. It isn't that at all. And in 1992, the Congress approved the UN Charter. Well, what people aren't aware of, because it wasn't printed in the press, in the newspapers, in our controlled media, is that because it's a treaty, it supersedes the Constitution of the United States. The UN Charter is now the law of the land, not the Constitution anymore. And in the UN Treaty, Articles 55 and 56, look it up, folks, prove me wrong, state that the United States Congress no longer has to abide by the U.S. Constitution. As of 1992, the United States of America ceases to exist. They just haven't told the people yet. And they're not going to tell them until after they have outlawed all weapons, after they have totally regulated the Second Amendment and taken everybody's firearms away so you can't fight, so you can't stand there and be free anymore. This is all part of the plan. This is why the Andromedans are so strong about trying to make the awareness here in the United States, because not only does it control media, but there are some incredibly strong spiritual essences here, people here, and we did this no less than 200 years ago, and many of the souls that were there then have incarnated again, and they're here. Jefferson is alive, the soul. Franklin's alive. Kennedy's back. Bobby Kennedy's back. Martin Luther King. Andrew Jackson, Lincoln, they're all back in physical form. They've all incarnated, they're all here in the United States. Because right now, this is where the battle is, between light and dark. You've got the Greys over us, you've got the reptilians underneath us, and between us you've got humanity, of the human, you've got the American people, all of the world, but you've got humanity sandwiched in the middle, wondering what the hell is going on here. Let's talk for another 10 more minutes.
Okay. What is the ultimate agenda then of the Alpha Draconians in relation to Earth and to this part of the galaxy?
They do not want our galaxy to move into 4th and 5th density consciousness, because they lose complete power.
But it will anyway, won't it?
Not necessarily. There are no guarantees. There are no guarantees. There's no guarantee that Earth is going to go into 4th or 5th density. There's no guarantees that the entire galaxy is going to get there. Because if that were the case, they would probably just leave us alone and not give a damn what was happening here. No. You see, the Draconans are third density. They're physical just like us. They can only move into fourth density by mechanical means. If we move into fourth and fifth density, they've lost their playground. They've lost control of what they want to control. So they're fighting like hell, trying to hold everything back. Because if they can hold everything back, then again, it's a form of power, of control.
Now,
it's such a mess.
Alex, how do the Andromedans plan to remove the Alpha Draconans? You said they're the bullies, are the strongest. Can they not be removed?
Apparently, the universe has created its own way of doing that, and maybe this is a good place to end. In the beginning, and here's the history of our universe, where it was created. The Big Bang Theory is essentially right in its simplicity. But apparently what happened was, as vibrations, as the universe starts to excel in light, this way, there are pockets, and you have to look at it as a holographic projection of light. When you put a shadow into a light, it creates a variance of the light. Well, apparently what happens is things that don't ascend or choose to take higher consciousness, they get very, very heavy in weight or in light, whatever you want to call it. And as everything starts to exceed up, bulges, dips in light are created, in frequency are created. And what happens is negativity forms, because of its weight, its heaviness, forms into these pockets. Well, what happens is they form a sac. And eventually what happens is those sacs break. And because everything is spirit and nothing is ever wasted, they form, when they explode, they cast themselves out and they form another universe. They create a space for them to continue. Well, that's how our black holes are. That's how they were formed. Those black holes, if we could get through them, would be to another universe. They're portals. And it would just explode out. Well, that's how our universe was created. Well, because of this new energy that's being formed, pockets of resistance are now being formed all through the universe, and in our galaxy, it's right now between us and Sirius.
So the way that the Andromedans plan to remove the Alpha Draconans would be
is basically to try to contain them, and their own energy themselves will suck them into a place of darkness so they can move out into another place. The Greys, the Orion groups, this is going to happen. It's happened before. They know it's happening now, and this is why everybody feels this intense energy. Things are suddenly really starting to increase, and it's simply because it is increasing.
So at a prior time, then, they were sucked out of another universe into Alpha Draconis? Is that essentially what happened?
They were sucked from wherever they were into another universe. How somehow that universe, or the beings in that universe, wherever they came from, said, we got to get rid of these guys, and they literally brought them here from their universe and dumped them and said, boom, this is where you are. Because they came here in physical form, which means they had to have been brought here. They didn't evolve like all the other life forms here have evolved. They were brought here in full physical form, which means they were created someplace else and dumped here and said, your history.
Well, someplace else, then, there's some very irresponsible people.
Well, maybe at some point in our eternal history we'll be able to address that issue. But for right now, we need to address our own issues.
Okay, let's go to the World Club then to end this up, and future events. According to the Andromedans, mankind has been manipulated for 5,724 years. Human agents must have participated in this throughout history. Who are some of the major players in this deception? You mentioned Hitler and the Giza intelligence.
Most of the pharaohs, most of the ancient Egyptian gods. There's so many. I couldn't honestly tell you. History is chock full of it. I think what people need to do is to go back and look at what we call mythology and really start giving it a second look. Richard Thompson, in his book, although I've not read it, but I've heard others talk about where he delves into the history of things. And it's also important to remember that just because it's history doesn't mean it's accurate history. because it has been proven over and over and over again. Whoever wins the war rewrites history. They write it to their benefit, to glorify themselves. And it doesn't mean that that's really what happened. And according to the Andromedans, our next major leaps in consciousness are going to come from science and archaeology. It isn't going to come from any spiritual leader or teachings. It's going to come from science, where science is going to say, you know what, here's the proof, this is true, this is reality, and I don't know what this stuff is, we can't prove that. And it's time we really start paying attention. Maybe at a future time we can share more or do another interview or something.
In a specific way, please describe in detail what the World Club is and who comprises it, and offer some specific examples of how they're controlling the rest of us.
Well,
the banking circles, maybe?
Yeah, it all evolves around money. The World Bank, International Monetary Fund. I mean, they've got the whole world in debt. Governments are giving away their mineral rights in perpetuity. The United States government is now in a position to declare a national state of emergency, suspend the Constitution of the United States, and nationalize. And the reason they will have to nationalize is because our debt far exceeds any ability to pay it back.
So who are the collectors? What countries are the collectors?
It's not a country, it's a group of men. It's a group of human beings.
It's a group of human beings.
Right. The aliens don't need money. They don't need an American Express card.
So if the rest
it's a man-made thing.
If the rest of us simply say, we're not paying back the debt, that's it, we're starting over, you can forget your whole system, then we can erase that whole thing and start over.
That's right. If we had a real president in office, and Kennedy was probably really the last one, what he should do is just go on TV and spell it all out. Surround himself with people that maybe he can trust to protect his life. He should get on television before Congress and all the houses, House of Representatives, in front of everybody, and spend 3 hours and give everybody a real education. Number one, the Federal Reserve is private. Number two, our debt isn't real. Number three, we've gotten ourselves into this big mess because past presidents sold us out for comfort and for money, and apologize. And then what he ought to tell, and just say that I'm nationalizing all the banks under the United States Treasury. We're going back to a silver standard, just like the Constitution says, and give everybody an opportunity to get back on track here, to maintain our standard of living and just start healing, And then the next thing I would say is, or make sure, if there were any POWs alive, that they came back home. And I would start healing all of that crap. The fact that, that our POWs were sold out because of a debt, because of $3 billion, when we've wasted $3 billion, or a promise to Vietnam, when we've wasted that kind of money on such stupid things as studying the sexual habits of a tsetse fly or frogs mating. I mean, it's unconscionable that we've allowed our government to do this.
Alex, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can do some real brief answers to some of these last couple things, just real brief. The United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union, according to your sources, have been building secret technologies and bases on Earth, the Moon, and Mars for some time. Where are these bases to be found on the Moon?
Where are they?
Yeah.
They're on the dark side.
And do you know what the locations are, what they're called?
Yes. One is under Jules Verne. God, I wish I had those notes in front of me. Let's come back to that.
Okay. Have they told you anything about Area 51 or Dulce, New Mexico?
Yeah, there were a lot of stuff there. The actual underground base is not underneath Arcoleta Mesa. It's actually 20 miles to the northwest. That's just an entrance point in and out.
This is Area 51?
This is in New Mexico, Dulce.
Okay.
It's not exactly right there. As far as Area 51, yes, there's a lot of stuff that was going on there, but a lot of that has been moved, and it's now in New Mexico, in the Sandia, underneath the Sandia Laboratory.
Diego Garcia Island.
Diego Garcia Island, there's a base there. Pine Gap. Diego Garcia Island, there's anti-gravity anomalies there, and this is how they were able to blow a lot of equipment into space without using rockets. And then they would have the UFO-type craft, which we built from technology we were given. They would hook a tow chain to it, and like a tow barge, just tow it to the moon.
Okay, and you
And,
mentioned...
it runs, and the equipment that's there is run on free energy, stuff that was built in that was created in the 1920s, that we've been absolutely not privy to. We haven't had to pump 1 gallon of oil out of the ground since the late 1920s. They've had free energy, but because of money, they've allowed us to be controlled. They've allowed us to pollute the environment, to devastate the oceans because of petroleum products when we don't need it for money.
Which brings us briefly to alternative 4.
When the Martian base fell, when the Martian base fell, the world government, those elite, figured out, well, we don't have any place to go now. The moon is not set up for long-term habitation, where Mars is and could be. So what happened was, when it fell and they knew we couldn't get there, they figured, well, we got to do something about here, because we have nowhere else to go. So I was told by the Andromedans that these men who think they're God had to come up with another alternative, which was they thought that they could create a controlled polar shift by detonating nuclear weapons or cobalt weapons underneath the South Polar ice cap, causing it to slip, which would cause the poles to slip. And within a 24-hour period, you would completely drown 83 to 85% of the population.
So the Andromedans said that they will not allow this.
It isn't going to happen. If the Earth is going to do it, it'll be done by her will, in a natural way. And that is a possibility in our future.
What is the primary message of the Andromedans?
Grow up now. Open your eyes. Open your ears. Take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your planet. And realize this is your home, this is your race, and that if you are sincere in making the effort to evolve, they will meet us halfway. But they're not going to come in here and do all the work for us. Their single most important thing is, and I'll go back to that little saying, the love that you withhold is the pain that you carry. We have got to start coming together as a race. We have got to stop allowing ourselves to be manipulated.
What can an average person do? I mean, how can we reach out to the Andromedans?
Prayer, meditation. Everybody has their own way of praying or whatever. And again, I want to stress this: the Andromedans can help, but they're not God. They're not our saviors. We need to be our own saviors. We can ask them for guidance and help, but they're not God. Period. Don't worship them. Don't worship anybody. Worship the God inside of you.
What will happen to those human beings who do not make the jump?
They'll go somewhere else.
And what will happen to those beings who do make the jump after the jump?
They'll move into 4th and 5th density. And those of us who survive this incredible ordeal that we're about to really experience will become new teachers, and we'll be able to go to different worlds and teach what we know, and be able to teach other evolving civilizations what not to do and how not to get themselves in trouble. And we have an incredible future if we can get through that. If 10% of the population of the planet can really get it together, it'll create what is called the 100th monkey syndrome. And suddenly 11, 12, 13% people will just start getting it. And it's going to take 10%. That's 500, 600 million people right now. And it starts on an individual basis. The government's not going to tell you. God, we could be in. They're going to play out the second coming. They're going to try to present a savior. They're going to project holographic images in space and say we're here to save you. They're going to do mock battle. They're going to screw with us big time. Sorry, I slipped out that word. And folks, we just got to start paying attention. Don't take anything at face value. Make them prove it. And, whether you believe a word I'm saying, it doesn't matter. If somebody tells you that this is truth, make them prove it. If it's real, it'll stand up to scrutiny. If it isn't, it won't. Because the truth can always stand on its own. It doesn't need help, and it doesn't need lies to stand up. And let's end it there. thank you for this time. It's been a real honor for me.
Thanks.
Thanks.